Ọjọ́ mélòógún ni o. Yes. Hello, hello.
Welcome back to our plenary session. There will be two plenary sessions, one in the morning and another in the afternoon. Participants will be hearing present. Welcome everyone back to our plenary session. There will be two plenary sessions, one in the morning and another in the afternoon, in which participants will be hearing presentations from the disabled persons organizations from respective members of ASEAN and invited professionals advocating issues and areas related to the theme. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of discussion for our first plenary session is entitled Enabling Education Towards Employment Amongst PWD in the New Norm. The moderator for this plenary session is Sharifah Adila Surya binti Malay Haji Abdullah, Deputy President and CEO of Smarter Brunei, an NGO that focuses on providing world-class quality services, programs, training, and employment to individuals with autism. A mother of 4 children, 2 of which are autistic, Sharifah Adila Surya has spent majority of her life growing up with autism, as her brother is autistic as well. She has worked with the NGO for 10 years and is trained in rights and legislations protection. Sharifah Adila Surya is also active in promoting and developing employment training and opportunities for individuals with autism, as well as ensuring to reach her NGO's goal of being an autism-friendly community. Without further ado, let's call upon Sharifah Adila Surya binti Malay Haji Abdullah and representatives from the ASEAN member states to our plenary session.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone here for joining us for a very exciting first panel session with the topic Enabling Education Towards Employment Amongst Persons with Disabilities in the New Norm. I look forward to this topic myself, as we will be discussing with an esteemed panel of guests. As we know, even before the term the new norm had come about, that education, vocational and training programs were accessible for PWDs to ensure they had the rights to employment upheld was entirely vital. What more now in the new norm? And today during this session, we'll be discussing just how crucial enabling education towards employment among PWDs in the new norm really is. Without further ado, let's meet our esteemed panelists. Today joining me, we have from Cambodia, Ms. Monica, the elected country representative of Cambodia to ADF. She is currently the executive director of Cambodian Disabled People's Organization, CDPO. Good morning, Ms. Monica.
Yes,
Then from Laos, we have Mr. Thong Chan Intachak, the elected country representative of Lao PDR to ADF. He is the executive director of the Disability Mainstreaming Advisory Service Center, DMAS. Good morning, Mr. Thong Chan Intachak.
Moderator. Good morning, everyone.
We have from Myanmar, Mr. Thien Han Thu, the elected country representative on Myanmar to ADF. He is a retired captain that has been an amputee since 1989 with a prosthetic leg below the right knee. and he is currently with the organization Integrated Community Development Foundation, ICDF, where he is the chairman and CEO. And from Vietnam, we have Miss Nguyen Thi Quai Hao. She is the president of Hai Phong Independent Living Center and is also the coordinator of Vietnam Independent Living Center and currently a lecturer at Hai Phong Management and Technical University. Please,
Good
everyone,
morning,
give them
ladies and
good
gentlemen.
morning. Good morning. Please, everyone, give them a big warm welcome. All right. So, without further ado, let us promptly begin today's panel session with our first panelist from Cambodia, Miss Mak Monica. I'd like you to start off the conversation, perhaps a little bit of a background on your organization. And currently, how does your organization facilitate education towards employment and etc.? Please, I leave the floor to you.
Okay, thank you, Darussalam, and good morning, all. And thank you all participants and also the moderators, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to be here. My name is Mak Monica. I'm from CDPO, Cambodia. So I would like to make the presentation of enabling education to work employment among PWD in new norm from Cambodia. Sorry. So now I'm going to share you the 5 points that I have screen that you have you can see here. First about the background, and the second one the introduction, challenges, lesson learned, and way forward from Cambodia. As you have mentioned earlier about disability movement in Cambodia, like CDPO, we established in 1994. We are the movement of disability movement in Cambodia, and we are the membership base, and also we are representative of organization in Cambodia working to reach outcome the voice of people with disability. And this is our background and the structures here. You can see the left side is the General Assembly. It means our General Assembly, it's come from DPOs from our province and all type of people with disability. And here the government board is the 9 members diversity disability among our DPOs. And here is our side DPOs. DPO, we work directly to our 75 DPO in the rural area, and we have 1,000 group and 20,000 individuals members here. And this is what are the structures of our network here. We have quarterly network among our networks, and here we work for the provincial level, our DPO side, and also we have district and commune level here. And Self Group is under the DPO side. And for the right side is our map here. Just want to show that the logo in here is all our DPO are over there. Included, I can say 75 DPO in each province in Cambodia, each area. This is just mentioned that from Cambodia, we are worked closely with policymakers on behalf of persons with disability by collaboration with the national and regional and international law policy framework. I think all of you already aware of all those policies. Just highlighted the red one is the UN Convention, and the second one is strategy insurance. Third, Asean enabling Masterplan. This is our Cambodia law, disability law, protection and promoting the right of people with disability. And this one is a National Disability Action Plans for Cambodia. This is accessibility guideline, and we have extra on this. And the last one is goal, SDGs goals. Regarding to my topic about the employment, just brief that in the past under support the DFAT access program, We just launching on 3rd December last week about the for the Department of Affairs, Social Affairs developed the employment app. The name is Aukas. Aukas in Khmer word and in English is opportunity to provide inclusive digital platform for people with disability aligned to employment. On this app, it started in last week on 3rd December and launching as public. And the other one is about the Phnom Penh, Cambodia, sorry. Cambodia, we just launching where the Phnom Penh post that on 23rd December 2021. We got opportunity with the vocational training on job opportunity for people with disability. Under their support, the National Employment Agency and also Ministry of Ministry of Vocational Training, Employment, we collaborate with us to project aim to help people with disability to find job and to promote the equal access to job and employment for people with disability. And that project, it will start from 1st September 2021 to 31st December 2023. And the main point is promote the idea and opening the jobs market to all people and to supporting job seeker with disability. For regarding to the point introduction here, in the past, based on the survey in 2017, we have one survey that achieved on the employment ability in achieving disability inclusion employment in Cambodia. We try to find the funding from that surveys. First, about the business model with economic and social objective. You find here number one is the first is benefit, and the second one is employees, and second one is employers take affirmative action and practical equal opportunity and non-discrimination for people with disability. On third, what the finding, the research finding, I mean on job training and new opportunity for people with disability, and disability training for colleagues without disability. And the last one, So the challenges with our country, it means all the policy maker is already implement and already got some achievement. And in the same time, we also got the some point of the challenges to work with the policy makers and the employers. First, some employers from private sector are still limited to recruit persons with disability. And the second one, the capacity building of our DBO side is also still limited to implement the project to engage the stakeholders and the private sector to get in. And as you are aware that I think it's not only Cambodia, but in the world that the COVID-19 outbreak is coming immediately. So some activity and some plan might be delayed and and amendment immediately. In one point, it's also important regarding to lack information to people with disability. I think this one is very important that we want to include all the diversity of disability. So we want to make sure all the awareness or all the public information to make sure all people can reach it. This one, we have also limited participant of employment by strategy process and still limit the understanding implement disability law both national and international level. And the budgeting and the human resource is also challenges for us too, because we need some budgeting to implement the project to make it, aware to the stakeholders. And our lesson learned during this period, we have a good collaboration with the government and stakeholders, and through our advocate and lobby with the Provincial Disability Action Council, our DPO it become the members of government with the PDAC, Provincial DAC. And the third one, we contribute immediately on COVID-19. We distribute the food and the PPE of COVID to people with disability, and also to our DPO in each area, and provide funding during. I think from the COVID, some of organization or some employment sector are also closed. So we provide some, vocational training center and provide the skill to people with disabilities. So that's why we provide funding. We provide a small grant to them to open business to improve their livelihood. We have a regional national DPO network meeting. In that time we have quarterly meeting, and we invite all our DPOs in network to collect the issue and the need of people with disability to find a solution. In that point, we can make it by like the joint statement or something like that, and we can share or send to relevant ministry. The other one is the coordinating with PRC, physical rehabilitation in Battambang and Kampong Speu and Kraches province in Cambodia. This is the first start that we did in the past under support from our donors. In the same time, let me brief. We have in Cambodia, we have 11 PRC centers. So the PRC center just registration and make the physiotherapy and produce the assistive device or etc. to people with disability. But this point with the 3 pilot project, we pilot 3 provinces to provide in the same time. We collaborate with the PRC center to make one desk for registration in employment for people with disability. So it's their time for them in the same time when they come to need the service, rehab service. They also can get the job opportunity by registration in that time. So the last one, emergency response is very important during COVID-19. What we are learned from there, in the same time, I'm not sure for other countries, but for us in the same time, although also flooding is coming. So in that time, we made the emergency response of the flooding and the COVID outbreak, and we made some activity immediately to survive our vulnerable group here. And also we have child approach to online. This one, it means also a lesson learned for us. It's the same right now, you see, because we cannot meet in person. That's why we need to make and organize the event through Zoom and Skype. And this is also a lesson learned for us to start with us online event. And flexibility is very important during this period. And the last one is, like I have mentioned on COVID-19, is also lesson learned for us to adapt it, and very, very flexibility to solve the problem. So the last one here is for us, it means continue working closely with the stakeholders, both the government and private sector, and mainstream our internal technical working group, and ongoing advocate and lobby on disability rights to stakeholders and partner and also the government side. Promote access to vocational training, employment justice. This point, and I just highlight that we not promote only to that point, but we can promote all the issue of regarding to the people with disability. Like you are aware that, as you know, aware the disability issue is a cutting issue. So not only social protection, not only CIP, but all the issue for people with disability, what we are very forward for the next step. So the strengthening the focal point on disability in ministry is also very important to make sure all of them they can aware and they can provide the input to the committee with the government side, and increase coordination and communication between the government, and improve quality of disability service, ensure the convenience and service for people with disability. And this one is very important to promote and to implement the right of people with disability and also the disability law. And the last one is very important for Cambodia because now we are still raising fund for to build our own office because we already have own land, but we need some budget to build the office, the building. Okay, it's all from my side, and wish you all good luck and stay safe. If any question, please let me know. Thank you. So I give the floor to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Monica, for that insightful look into your organization and what currently Cambodia has undergone, has been going through. And I believe some of the key points here is that in terms of challenges, it's not just new challenges, it's also amplifying current and previous challenges that you have in terms of lack of awareness, lack of information, accessibility issues. And I think a lot of us can resonate with that. But I do like to see that there were also some lessons learned and some positive outcomes due to the pandemic. For example, being able to work closely with the government and having better relationships with other NGOs and getting more support in ways that was not thinkable before the pandemic. Yeah. So let's now move on to our next panelist, our Mr. Thong Thong Interchak from Lao PDR. I would like to hear from you, sir, now. How has your organization facilitated enabling education towards employment? What are your current issues and challenges? I give the floor to you, sir.
Thank you very much, the moderator, and good morning again for everyone. And first, I would like to thank to the organizer to organize this event during this pandemic in the world. So,
Mana gambar saya?
can you say this right? Let me introduce my organization is this Disability Mainstreaming Advisory Service Center. Is the organization for person with disability, is the OPD, and it was established recently in 2019, and we got the authorization license number from the National Committee for Elderly and Disability. Our center is provide technical expertise, coaching, and advisory service to private public company and the organization to accompany them to the journey equal access to employment service for persons with disability in Laos. So, and I cannot see my screen, my slide, so can you say?
Are you screen sharing right now?
Let me see. I cannot see. Okay, anyway, for this session, I would like to share the enabling education toward to employment among persons with disability in the new norm. So in our organization, we during this pandemic in Laos, we try to do to work with the DPO in Laos, called in Laos PDR, based on the statistic, we will have a 2.77% of persons with disability. So, and the geography that will be like 3.3% in rural area without road, and 2.86 is in rural area with road, and 2.48% is in urban. So that's the number of persons with disability in Laos that's over 5 years old. Is from the statistic in 2000. 2015. So when we talk about the enabling to the education, I think we got the same issue with other country, like because it's new norm just coming, and so we don't have anything to prepare. So what I would like to say here about how to get enabling the education to the new norm. I think the government should implement the inclusive education and the special education to support persons with disability, and make sure that they have the budget of the production of accessible digital learning material that used by students with disability. And the Ministry of Education should provide more opportunity for students with disability to enroll the technical vocational education training for them. That is some recommendation for enabling the education. Let's see my screen. So can anyone see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen. It's gorgeous.
Okay, sorry about that. So in terms of the employment, so during early this year, our center we also do some conduct some survey with 400 graduate students, since they graduate from the school, and we found that the big number of person with disability is unemployed. So it's like 68% is the person that are unemployed, and only 32% that they got employed. So, and we can see that which from the number that they working, they're only self-employment is the highest number in our country, that person with disability after they get to age, so they cannot find the job with the government or private sector, so they have to start their own business or do the self-employment. So when we look to this number here, we only it's surprising is the NGO that's always working with OPD, but the number of hiring person with disability into their organization is very low, only 3%. That's something that our center or the other DBO have to work in terms of raising awareness to make sure that the awareness of the disability inclusive employment. And during the COVID period, so based on the number from our center that we do this disability employment, so we can see that the person with disability is lost their job during this period is quite very high. It's like 55%, and only 35% that are remaining the job, and 10% of the person who lose the job, 10% of them they will get the new job. So it's quite challenging for this point as well. So I would like to put some recommendation here to make sure that person with disability is still remain in the job to get a job. So the inclusive policy and regulation should be increase the employment of person with disability by create the better environment work, transit to remote work environment. So make sure that the person with disability also have the chance to work from home, and flexible working hour for them is some recommendation. And yes, of course, we need to improve the knowledge of the government and relevant professional on developing the inclusive employment opportunity for persons with disabilities. So these are right first, because we have to raise awareness among the stakeholder, the government partner, and other stake. And the recruiting process, hiring person with disability should be considered like to prevent the discrimination against person with disability and provide reasonable accommodation to be made during the recruiting hiring process. So when we consider to hiring person with disability, should consider about the reasonable accommodation for them. And like in La PDR, even we have the disability law that are introduced in early last year, but we still don't have the quota system. And the this point, I think we encourage the policy and regulation to enable to support the person with disability to obtain the job, to enhance the work performance by integrating the communication and technology to utilize the assistive technology for person with disability. Something that should be considered like the quota system, the assistive technology for support person with disability, even in the school or the teammate or before they get a job. That's all for my presentation. If there are any questions, happy to have the question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Interchak. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a difficulty with pronouncing your name. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I can definitely summarize from your presentation. I'm a bit in shock myself with the statistics that you had shared on the those PWDs who have lost their job, 55%. That is a lot of them during the new norm, and it further amplifies and further signifies how the new norm further marginalizes people with disabilities, especially when it comes to employment. I mean, before the pandemic had started, it was already a challenge for a lot of PWDs to gain access, the basic right, according to the CRPD, to get a right to employment. And then now with the pandemic, it's even more so amplified. And I'm very sorry for those who have lost that. But hopefully with this forum, we are able to send more recommendations and further protect their rights in this year. And so without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to our Myanmar spokesperson, our Myanmar panelist, Mr. Thien Han Thu, to present his presentation. I will share his presentation right now. Yeah, okay. I give the floor to you, sir. Hold on 1 minute. Yeah, sorry. Okay. There we go. Mr. Thien Han Thu, can you unmute your mic, please?
Sorry.
Here. Thank you. Please proceed, your time,
Excellency,
sir.
distinguished invited guests, governmental officials, representatives from TPOs, NGOs, and friends from Asean countries. May I extend a wish to you, Mingalava. Good morning. I am delighted to be here today to talk to you about enabling education towards employment amongst PWD in the new norm. Next slide. I will start with the current pattern in education and employment situation of persons with disability in Myanmar. Then I will look at the challenges faced during the pandemics. Next topic is lesson learned, and finally is way forward and recommendation. Next slide, please. Let me start with some general information on the current patterns in education and employment situation of PWD in Myanmar. The finding come from the 2014 Myanmar Census Thematic Report on Disability. Children with disability are often excluded from the formal education system, placing them at equitable disadvantage from the start of their lives. The 44% of moderately disabled 13 years old have never attended school, compared to 4% of 13 years old with no disability. Next slide, please. For 15 to 90 years old, illiteracy levels among the disabled are more than 10 times as high, 59.4%, as for those without disability, 5.7%. Adding an additional and lifelong handicap to their disadvantage. This slide. Previous government designed and set the Myanmar COVID national response and recovery plan for the education sectors, but Myanmar education system is not inclusive for children with disabilities. It was educational exclusion of persons with disability. Next slide, please. Let me begin by explaining all about the employment situation of PWD in Myanmar. As you know, the lack of education leads to fewer employment opportunities. The census indicates persons with disabilities aged 15 to 64 years are less likely to be participating in the labor force compared to those without disability. Next slide, please. COVID-19 National Response and Recovery Plan is based on the numbers of targets and indicators. The goals are primarily focused on reviving the private sector, but disability is not mainstreamed into the policy. Further, we have noted that the goals in the policy lack specific measures. Almost 2 years after COVID-19, December 2019 to November 2021, the lack of data on the education and employment situation of PWD in Myanmar indicates the need for more research in this area. However, the current pattern in education and employment situation of Myanmar PWD is not different, similar to 2014 situation. Please, next slide. I would like to give you some background information about the challenges faced during the pandemics concerning education and employment. The main challenges for children with disability are not attending school are lack of person assistance to get to school. Disability was considered too severe. Lack of awareness of parents that a child could go to school, and important and additional one is impact of the twin crisis in Myanmar, COVID and political situation. On 31st March 2020, the previous government called for the closing of all schools, higher education institutions, and TVET institutes. The caretaker government reopened all basic education schools on November 2021, including private school and Buddhist monastic school, with a decrease in daily COVID-19 infection in the country. But we cannot see for the special school for the student with disability, they are not attending. We cannot find the data in media. Please, next slide. ILO estimated 6.9 million to 7.3 million jobs could be disturbed in Myanmar during the course of 2020 as a result of pandemic and related containment measures. Vulnerable people are disproportionately to job disruption in several sectors, but no specific data for the disability employment. Most of disabled workers in informal sectors, many of whom are self-employed, not only have less security of employment during the COVID-19 crisis, but also usually lack basic benefits such as social and legal protection. This next slide. Previous government issued the COVID-19 Economic Relief Plan, which aimed to assist and protect the most vulnerable populations in the labor market. But the government has been limited in providing direct support to people. Any such support was short-lived and primarily provided at the beginning of the pandemic. On 1st February 2021, the caretaker government announced the 5-point roadmap. Actions will be taken to ensure the speedy recovery of businesses from the impact of COVID-19 is the one of the 5 points. On 4th December 2021, the government newspaper described that depending on the experiences of persons with disabilities in the COVID-19 crisis, the projects of the Sustainable Development Goals, including the person with disabilities for 2030, will be implemented and placed under assessment. To overcome the challenges, the government initiates catch it that provided just 30,000 each to the person with disabilities, not to be left in the hair care, but provided humanitarian aid under the UN 2030 program. Why? The people are facing the COVID-19. The national committee and working committees were formed for implementing the right of person with disability law 2025 and the rules 2017, with adopting the decision at their meeting to fulfill the education, employment, healthcare, social and legal needs of the person with disability in the projects and what procedure. The Deputy Prime Minister said, vulnerable groups, including the person with disability, prioritized as a nation of COVID-19, starting from September 2021. There are initiatives to develop a more inclusive and requirement of employment opportunity. Please next slide. Before I start, does anyone know that part of my presentation is lesson learned? According to the COVID-19 National Response and Recovery Plan for the education sector, the government is responsible for the protection of the health and well-being of learners, teachers, trainers, professors, education staff in Myanmar, and to ensure that teaching, learning, and research are progressing and that academic requirements are being met. To effectively respond to the COVID-19 crisis, Education Ministry and its partner need to develop a coordinated course of action and that allows for emergency response strategy as well as for more sustainable intervention to ensure continuously learning for all, the safety and well-being of learners and education staff, and the protection of gains made in education in past years. This next slide. Apart from education sectors, unemployment rates increased to 1.79% in 2020 from 0.70% in 2019 that affected of the COVID-19. Consequently, there are negative experiences of employment situation of people in the pandemic. Some employers are looking opportunity to arbitrarily dismiss employees during time of financial hardship. Some businesses are looking to those disabilities when they want to reduce their workforce. For Myanmar PUD, being employed is not only depend on the global prices, but also a result of prejudice and poor understanding rather than disability itself. So, the integrated the disabled into the workforce, education that publish about PUD and promoting social inclusion are necessary. The positive information that reflects for the disabled employment is growing number of companies are employing PUD. Mostly need to be ensure equal terms of employment. The UNFCCI, Federation of Chambers and Commerce, was committed to ensuring that the country make the most of the talents and skill of PUD. Businesses were looking for guidance and support to do this, as well as clarity from the government on issues such as disabled registration. Please, next slide. In conclusion, which are main root causes that barrier to enable education for the PUD, such as comprehensive implementation of disability right law, empower to PUD for their capacity and confidence to look for a job, removing negative attitude of employers or workers, and by other people's understanding of PUD capabilities and important point is available of COVID vaccine to person with disability. Please, next slide. Let's summarize what we have looked at with for what for enabling education to what employment amongst PUD in the new norm. Actually, the law on the right of person with disability is the legal framework for compliance with the UN Convention. Chapter 10 covers access to employment for person with disability and set out obligation for employers. That's where we provide to move forward the education and employment of Myanmar PUD. The law also provides for the possible introductions of requirement for companies to employ a quota of person with disability to be set national committee on the right of person with disability. But failure to meet the quota could result in fines to be used for a fund for protecting the rights of person with disability. The law also provides for the possibility of tax incentive if any employers employ more than the set quota of person with disability. Quota for the employment of person with disability has not yet been set. Therefore, failure to meet the quota could result in fine to be used for a fund for protecting the rights of person with disability. Please move this slide. Based on the law, my recommendation for the National Committee is to pursue following options concerning enhancing the employment opportunity for PUD. This is immediate action on setting a quota as soon as possible and focus on the various actions necessary to improve the enabling employment and environment, including new norm situation for employment of person with disability, including awareness raising on the rights of person with disability, existing law, policy and law, regulation, outlaying discrimination. This should be targeted at government department, businesses, and the general public. And implementation of existing policy, laws, and regulation to ensure non-discrimination in particular. For example, access to education and vocational training, acceleration of the registration process of person with disability, and activities and programs to increase employability and employment of person with disability, including disability registration, which is essential for most programs intended to support persons with disability, including employment quota in the new norm. Currently, the program is training trainer. And both training program on skill, job placement, job readiness, job coachings, and self-confidence. In conclusion, we call on the government of Myanmar to put their obligations into action in line with the Asean Annual Masterplan for disability inclusion in the new norm. This next slide. Thank you all for listening. It was a pleasure being here today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thien Han Thu, for that insightful look into what is currently going on in Myanmar. And I would like to highlight a few things that I feel that also resonates with the previous speakers, where one is that among the PWDs in employment, most of them were self-employed. Were not employed with companies, and then of course a lot of them have lost their jobs during the pandemic. And I do agree with you that a lot of the times government fails to implement policies that have disabilities, people with disabilities in mind, and so emergency responses are not catered towards their needs, and that is a basic human right. And so I would love to highlight this as a recommendation that we can provide towards the ASEAN Secretariat, and thank you for that again. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker from Vietnam, Miss Nguyen Thi Khoi Hao, to do her presentation. Please, I give the floor to you, Madam.
Okay, wait for me. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hoa, and I'm from Vietnam. So it's my great honor to be here to present to you my presentation, but maybe it will take some minutes for me to share my screen because I don't know what is going on here. I cannot see anything.
We see something.
Can you see anything?
Yes, yes, you can. We see a presentation.
Yeah. Okay, so you can see my PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to start. Yeah, the title of my presentation is the Empowering the People with Disability Job Opportunity in the 4.0 Technology Era in Vietnam. Of course, the title is like that, but I share the same thing with my friends because, first of all, I would like to share with you some background information about the Vietnamese people with disability, about the legal framework, and especially about the educational training and employment situation in Vietnam. There are about 6.2 million of people with disability in Vietnam, about 7% of population aged from 2 to older. Yeah, and there are 671,659 children with disability aged from 2 to 17, and 5,553,860 people with disability aged from 18. Yeah. About the education, the primary net enrollment rate for the children with disabilities is about 88.7%. The secondary level, only 1/3 of the children with disability go to school at the right age, about 33.6%. And every 100 people with disability age 18 years old or older, only 7 of them are trained in vocational secondary school, and there are only 0.1% people with disability who have the college or university qualification. About the vocational training and employment, 62% of people with disability in Vietnam are in the neighbor age from 18 to 16, but only 50% of them get the official salary, and 80% of them work in the unofficial area without being paid, and only 5% of them have a vocational trained. And for the vocationally trained, 57% at the primary level, 27% at the intermediate level, and 60% get the college or university level. And 90% of them have got vocational training. And this is some graph about the information of the people with disability in different age group. Yeah. Next is about the technology, information, and the media accessibilities in Vietnam. And as you can see here, the percentage of people with access internet by disability status is like that. Yeah, and the percentage of people with mobile phone by disability status. For the policy, it can be said that the legal framework in Vietnam fulfill all the right of people with disability for even in the education law or disability law. They regulate about the regulation of vocational training, about the employment of the people with disability, and regulate the right to get education for the children and for the people with disability. And the law of disability in 2010 regulate the companies, organization, enterprise, and people not to refuse to employ the people with disability who are qualified to the vacancies, and give the standard of rescuing which is the illegal to limit the job opportunity of people with disability. It said the truth that not only the people in Vietnam, but the people with disability have to suffer from the COVID-19, and there are some of the information about it. According to a recent survey of UNDP in Vietnam, to ask about 10,000 people with disability, 70% of Vietnam people with disability have a monthly income less than 1 million Vietnam dong. This means less than $50 a month during the COVID-19 pandemic. And 30% of people with disability are made unemployed due to the COVID-19, and 49% of them have their work hours reduced, and 59 receive a pay cut, and 71% of working people with disability do seasonal or informal job or own an informal business, so they are at risk of being ineligible to receive the allowance from the government social welfare response package. I will explain more about this package. So what Vietnam has done during the 2012-2020, the number of students with disability to go to school increased 10 times than the 2000 and 2010 periods, and the quality of their academic performance has improved too. Yeah, and furthermore, 282,000 of them have been vocational trained, and among them, 210,000 have been supported to receive vocational training free, and 50,000 of them have been vocationally consulted, and 22,000 of them have learned from the National Vocational Fund, and many of them can study the IT, tailoring, machine, makeup, okay, many kind of jobs. And if they are unemployed or stop working, they can access to the supporting fund from the government for the workers and enterprises suffering from the COVID-19, ranging from $80 to $150 per month. But this one is only for the people with the social insurance. It means the official workers. And the money allowance for the people with disability have been raised to about 720 to 20,000 Vietnam dong per person per month, and about 900,000 Vietnam dong per month. So it's about $50 per month. It has been raised. And if they are not the official workers, if they don't receive the support from the national fund from the government during the pandemic, people with disability receive the support of 10 kilogram of rice and other daily basic items a month from the local government and sponsor and other stakeholder. Yeah, it means that almost no one is left behind during the pandemic. Almost. And for the informational accessibility and training, National TV Postcast is responsible for the program with the subtitle language interpretation, including the 4 channel, BTV, TV, O2 TV, and also program teaching the signal language on TV, and 60% the national website providing the basic tool to support the people with disability to access to the use information technology and media. Okay, so as a special screen for the people with the vision disability. Beside that, there are many projects from the NGO, from the international organization to support the people with disability during the pandemic time. On the screen are the photo from the UNDPs and to some Vietnamese organization for the people with disability. They are organizing the IT training course for the people with disability so that they can access to the information, access to the internet and technology so that they can have a better chance to get the job working on the e-commerce market or on the internet, which is quite brand new and quite suitable for the people with different kinds of disability, especially during the pandemic time. Yeah, so this project will expand until the 2030s. It means that there are more and more people with disability can access to this kind of course. And for the Vietnam Independent Living Network, now we have been the coordinator to coordinate the projects with the people with disabilities so that they can register and they can join the courses like that. And beside that, we also work with the other organization to do the concerning course on the startup education for the students and for the people with disabilities so that they can practice and improve the skill and also improve the lack of practice and can join in the labor market as well as other people, not only the people with disability. Yeah, so that's all I would like to present from my presentation. So all the feedback, question and comment, I warmly welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam, for your presentation and insight to how Vietnam is currently enabling education towards employment. I can safely say, summarizing everything from all the panelists here, that we can all agree that there's a few points that are very similar for all of us. For example, first and foremost, we can agree that during the pandemic and even in the new norm, PWDs are further marginalized. there is somehow an uneven distribution of funding, and somehow funding has also stopped during the pandemic as people were focusing it towards COVID-19 and the healthcare system. And another thing that we can agree for is that on top of employment being an issue, they are also, that PWDs are also the first people to be let go, to be fired from their jobs. And it's very unfortunate to hear this. However, I do like to highlight that there were some great things coming up from each of our panelists, noting that they, for example, Vietnam, I'm so glad to hear that almost nobody was left behind in terms of helping aid those who were affected in terms of their livelihood. And in Cambodia, there was a good relationship with other NGOs. In Myanmar, you have highlighted all these issues and are calling upon not just awareness, but now action to be implemented into the country, and Laos as well, the same sentiment. So if the participants here have any questions, please feel free to ask. You can either put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask the panelists directly. I would like to take this opportunity to ask our panelists if you have anything to add or want to share anything else with regards to your current situation and challenges that you feel need to be highlighted. As we have heard from everyone, maybe there's something you would like to share with everyone from everyone's presentation. So I'll leave the floor to our panelists. Anyone want to share anything? I think I'd like to ask Ms. Nguyen Quay Hao about your the e-commerce in Vietnam. For Vietnam, in terms of your e-commerce, how does that help with people who are in the remote areas who don't have accessibility to this? Is there any strategies to help ensure that those who are in remote areas can learn as well how to do business online, especially in those areas?
Yeah, thank you for the very challenging questions, but that is what we are trying to do right now, because as you know, there are about 70% of people in Vietnam live in the rural areas, and it means that a lot of people with disability live in the rural area. So it's very difficult to them to access to the internet, to the information technology or something like that. But maybe it's a bit difficult, but it doesn't mean that we cannot do that, because right now we have during Vietnam we have in Vietnamese mean the agriculturalization. It means that they try to improve the life of people in the rural area and in the rural and in the mountainous area, so that from the basic things to the education or something like that, we have the special project from the government. First to improve the basic things, and then step by step. And for during the pandemic time, we will have some special project calls for the stakeholder and other sponsor to donate the smartphones or second-hand laptop or computers, so that we can give it to the people in the rural, to the children in the rural area, to the mountainous area, so that they can access to the online classes. Because during the pandemic time, the schools are almost closed almost everywhere, and we always on the alarm status, close and open, close and open, for almost 2 years. So the children have to study at home too, even the children with disability, and they have to join the online classes. Yeah, so that we are trying to do. Of course, it's not easy, because the living standard in the rural area is not very high, but we are, all of us, all the people are trying, not only the government.
Yes, I share your sentiments on the challenges of how hard it is to get accessibility of, especially for those with education. We have one question here to any of the panelists. So this is directed to all the panelists. What are the government initiatives to help or support employment among PWDs? Are there any grants or subsidies given to employers who hire PWD, or is there any quota allocation of the workforce? Anyone would like to take that question?
Hello. Maybe I will take response to that question because it's quite some opposite with the one that we implementation in Laos. In Laos, there's no quota system, and there's no subsidy to give to any employers. But in terms of the government, like I mentioned, that the National Committee for Elderly and Disability, they try because we now introduce our disability law in 2019. So it's the new. So what's the government do? They try to promote in terms of disability inclusion, especially with in the big city. They try to be like the initiative for the DPO to work with the private or public company. Even sometimes they can like support to develop the letter, the invitation letter for DPO to invite the private sector to participate in any event that organized by the DPO. That's the one that they can support recently in Laos. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to add on to that question from our panelists?
In Vietnam, if the organization, companies or enterprise who employ the people with disability can receive 30% tax reduction. 30% tax reduction if they employ the people with disability to work. But the number of people with disability have to be 10% to 30% of the total employees. Yeah, if they fulfill that kind of numbers, they can receive 30% of tax reduction. Yeah.
Well, that's nice to see that the government has implemented that. Anyone else would like to add on? Yes, Miss Monica.
Yes, for Cambodia side, we have a set degree to recruit person with disability for job opportunity. From the government side, should be 2% from total amount of the staff, and private sector 1% should be recruit person with disability on them. And based on this practice and from our internal government side, we also make the employment toolkit that provide accessible for people with disability. We call a person with disability side and recruitment process, and also employers cycle. So that toolkit is could have with the stakeholder and private sector to identify or to the mapping person with disability who can work with them. Example, like in the past, before that toolkit is take place, or the private sector and stakeholder, they always ask, so what kind of support that employer could support to person with disability, include deaf, what kind of job, and blind, what kind of skill, etc. So that book and that guideline show how to assist person with disability on job placement, include disability inclusion and also accessibility. Okay, thank you from my side.
All right. I have one participant who raised their hand here. I believe this is Miss Hong Ha. She would like to ask a question. Madam, I pass the floor to you to ask a question to our panelists.
I am the committee member of the ADF. So I would like to have a question to the presenters about we had a presenter from Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos about the experience in how to say, to promote the inclusion of people with disabilities into the education or employment policies of the government. Yeah, so people with disabilities. In Vietnam, the reaction of the government is very quickly to be against the COVID-19, but the disability inclusion goes after that. It's not in the first days. Yeah, except the healthcare. Yeah. So if our colleagues from the other countries can have some sharing about the action of the government, yeah, in education employment for people with disabilities during and after the pandemic situation. Thank you. Hope.
I would like to invite speakers from Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar to, if you would like to answer that question. We also have two other questions here waiting for you all.
Okay, thank you, moderator and Hong Han, for that question. I think it's really good question to all we should know about each country. For Cambodia, when the COVID-19 pandemic is coming, so the government side they provide a cash transfer to people, not people with disability, to the vulnerable group. And that vulnerable group they count a person with disability, elders, and pregnancies and children. So in case for the criteria, we can say if all of those groups they have ID pool cards. ID pool card. If the challenge is for us here, when we accept to use that system, some of DPO and person with disability, they have to push their members to get the ID pool first. If not, they cannot get any allowance from the government side. This is an official system that encourage the cash transfer. Beside that, sub-degree, this one we call sub-degree. But beside that, we have other support from the government side and also stakeholder to support, like I had mentioned earlier about the PPE, something like that, to protect like mask, alcohol, etc. So the order and also include food. So all stakeholders they can provide immediately, and that time we not focusing on the NGO, not focusing government, but we want to make sure all vulnerable group they can get right to to have our own livelihood, or can like easily during the pandemic. But the challenges is that in that time is remember me when the lockdown some cities in Cambodia, most not only person with disability, most of the people cannot outside the house and outside the zone. So during that time we have immediately direct to they have the committee, how can we say, the COVID reservation committee, something like that. So to provide immediately response to those people, include the vulnerable group and person with disability, etc. So I think this could work for us, but however, it's not, the assistance, I think it's not all the requirement or the need for people with disability. Some part we need also, try to ask others to support, like Cambodia Red Cross, Life, World Food, etc. Yeah, so this is from our side. Thank you.
Yes, a lot of having to network and having strong relationships with others is essential, I would say. Yes, so who would like to continue for the answering next? I would like to pass the floor on to Myanmar, to Mr. Thien Hantu.
Actually, the post-pandemic new normal is the new range, but how should we begin to think about the new normal people with disability? we issue guidelines clearly state that action need to be taken to ensure that people with disabilities can always access the healthcare service, water and sanitation service, and public health information they require, including during the COVID outbreak.
Mr. Thian
Yeah.
Hantu, sorry to interrupt you. Can you speak a little clearer? I think your mic is far away. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Thank you.
Hello, it is clear? Okay. For the inclusive of person with disability in Myanmar in every sector. Current situation is difficult to inclusive. In my presentation, I have presented current situation, requirement of implementation of the right law and other lack of activities and implementation. So the as my organization or the DPO as a DPO, we could function as a bridge between the administrations and the person with disability, promoting advocacy role of person with disability. It is the DPO or the my organization activities, mainly activities. Because the NGO could help many DPOs with providing useful information and connecting them to access services, the monitor, explain the COVID-19 support materials, health materials, and other findings. And then the PWD database consolidation should be done, and all information of person with disability available with NGO for providing support is very important to the inclusive public. And as an NGO, the cases of violence reported in media against person with disability during the post and during pandemic era, and we can educate person with disability communities on their entitlements and how to access them. It is very important because their voice not hear the government and the responsible person and the general public. And we inform to the responsible departments and organizations to overcome on the biggest challenges for promoting inclusiveness of person with disability in community. The biggest one is identify as, for example, employer attitudes, lack of awareness of law, banning discrimination, and other capabilities of workers with disability, and inaccessible public transport, lack of qualified candidates, lack of registration system, lack of assistive technology, and family attitude. So we have many things to be done for the inclusiveness of equity for the future and now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answer, Mr. Thian Hantu. I'm sorry, Ms. Hang Hua, I have to move on to a next question as we have a bit of a time limit. I do apologize for that. So I will continue on to the questions we have in the chat. I will be mentioning the first question that I see is, are the persons with disabilities provided with trainings before they actually go on to any employment? And if a PWD is capable of work, however, they would require supervision, what is the situation and how is the situation handled, especially for those who are on the intellectual disability spectrum? So I would like to hand this over to our panelists who would like to begin with the question.
Again, let me share some experience of our organization. We not work directly with the intellectual person, but we work mostly with a person with disability who want to get a job. So yeah, even the person with disability that they have to graduate from public or private sector, but the thing that we do here, we need to train them in terms of job readiness training for them, because it's quite challenging and difficult for them when they try to do the interview or and so on. And at the same time, we also have to work with the employer to get them to understand about the need of person with disability, and maybe we also talking about the reasonable accommodation if they are hiring person with disability, and then we try to use like to refer to the disability right in disability law, for example. It's like that. So yeah, of course, person with disability they need the training before they getting the job. Thank you.
Would any other panelists like to add on to that before we move on to, I think we have 2 or 3 more questions just to squeeze in. All right, so is anyone here wanting to add on? No, so far. Okay. So the next question we have here is, for PWDs working in government sector, what kind of jobs do they do? For those in private sectors, what kind of jobs do they do? Is it in hospitality, factory? Please share your insights. I think this question is quite related to a question I have here that wants to know what's the largest category of persons with disability. I think she's referring to either is it physical, is it or intellectual? So please do share your insights and statistics with us.
Okay, I will answer this question, but I'm not sure whether you are satisfied with this or not. But as far as I know, there is no system or body that identifies that the job opportunity to match with the skill that with the people with disability have. Yeah, I'm sorry to say that. Yeah, and for different kind of jobs, the people with disability can do. As far as I know, most people with disability to work can work are the one with the physical disability. Some are with the vision, okay. But as far as I know, for the people with physical disability, they can work in the factory, in the industrial zones, like other workers working with eyes and the hands, when they can work with the eyes and the hands. And for the some other, they can mostly work in the NGO and other organization for the people with disability, not for the government sectors, as far as I know. And some of them who are qualified now can work in the some university or institutes or something like that. It means I don't know about the other country, but in Vietnam there are some lecturers who are the disabled people like me and some other in the south of Vietnam. So I think if we are qualified enough, the job opportunity are still waiting for us. And sorry to say that there is no system to match the skill with the abilities of the people with disability. Yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you so much for that insight. Is there anyone else who would like to add on? We also have a few questions here that says, based on any panelist experience, how long is the training for people with disability before they can start to work in any sectors? We'll be ending this session with that question and the previous questions if any other panelists would like to add on to the questions asked. So I will open the floor again to our panelists. Please feel free to ask to answer.
Okay, for me, I'm agree what my friend Vietnam mentioned. We don't have any matching between the disability, but the most important, the matching with the work task. I mean the work responsibility during the job. So example like if we speak about the disability type, sometimes physical like example like physical. I think physical we have different level. Somehow level 1, level 2, or level 5. So it might be the I think it's not matching on that, but the most important is encouragement from the employer is very important. Why I say like that? Sometimes now for Cambodia we didn't heard anything about that, but just in the past we heard that oh, the sub-degree is coming, the private sector will select 1% or something like that. So that it is not, sometimes it's not out their heart, just complete the quota system 1% or something like that. But during that they need to mainstream, or they need to make the job club or job keeping for person with disability. They stay longer at that company. Just an example like that. Yeah, it's all from my side. Thank you.
I can squeeze in one more answer if there is anybody who's interested to answer. If not, we will close this session.
For the question about how long the training, how long the training for the people with disability, I think it depends on the training course. I mean the vocational training course. It can be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 1 year, 2 years. It depends on the kind of job the people with disability want to study for. For the IT course, for the makeup course, for the mechanic course, it's quite different. It depends on the they need to study, and of course the length of the course must combine between the theory and the practice time together. For some kind of the makeup or tailor or hairdresser, that kind of job, I think it will be shorter than for the mechanic or for the IT or for the what kind of job. Yeah, in Vietnam we have a master course for the people with a vision with disability. It also a short course too. So I think it depends on the type course for you want to study, and the training different. It depends. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I believe that brings this panel to a close. I would like to first and foremost thank all of our esteemed panelists here for sharing. I would need to ask for Ms. Howe and Mr. Intichak's slideshows to be please emailed to the organizers, as some of us would like to have it. I already have Ms. Monica's and Mr. Thien Hantu's presentations with me. First and foremost, before we end the session, I think we can all agree that this was a very insightful discussion in terms of what's currently going on in several countries around ASEAN, and how the new norm has not only amplified issues that were already present, but has also made it clear that there is still a lot to do in terms of strengthening policies, upholding the rights of all of those with PWDs, in ensuring that they are able to access the basic right of education and getting employment. And as well as, it's not just awareness that needs to be strengthened here, but implementation is key in ensuring that this is achieved. And I would like to thank my panelists here for reminding all of us of that, especially that in terms of a pandemic, better planning for all of people with disabilities is essential, especially in terms of distribution of funding, distribution of accessibility needs, for example, accessibility to basic food necessities, like as we had from Vietnam, rice or water, clean water, electricity and internet. And I think this is something that is very much well deserved to be highlighted. And I thank you guys once again. And thank you everyone here for listening in to our first panel session. I would like to thank everyone once again, and please stay safe wherever you are. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you very soon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Moderator,
you.
Madam Chair.
and all our panelists from ASEAN member states. With that, we'll wrap up the morning session. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee for the hard work and commitment, and to all the participants of the forum for joining us in this event. A gentle reminder to everyone that the second plenary session will resume at 1400 hours. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and see you all in the afternoon session.